Okay, first of all, we would like to thank everyone for coming here. We know that there is a typhoon coming and northern Taiwan starts to rain. And I know that we have a lot of our audience on both offline and also online. And we would like to thank you for your support, both online and offline. So first of all, we would like to invite our team leader, Ms. Huang, from the Education Promotion Team of National Taiwan Museum. Okay, so dear audience and everyone, this is Huang from the Education Promotion Team of National Taiwan Museum, and I believe you have recently, if you have watched the news reports, you will know that we have a lot of awards ceremony. There are a lot of focus put on the diversity of culture, and I think in my childhood, I used to speak Taiwanese, but now it's really common to see people on the island speaking all kinds of languages and dialects. So it's really a diverse and inclusive society that we have now in Taiwan. And we would really like to thank the Ministry of Culture and also National Development Council and also the organization team to create and also to host such an event. So this is really the last day of our Sustainable New Year's Table event. And I think our quest for cultural diversity is a consistent effort that we all need to work on. And in this Sustainable New Year's Table, we focus on searching for the historical backgrounds, the emotional connections, the emotional demand that we have. And we we always say that everyone needs a common language to communicate, but at the same time, we also want to explore what is really behind each language and dialect that we speak. So we let us look forward to the discussion we have today and feel all of the unexpected stories and also values behind each of the language and dialects. So please enjoy. Thank you. Okay, so please stay on the stage, Mr. Huang. So it's a really rare opportunity here that we can have three of our speakers from around Taiwan, and uh, we would like to invite everyone to take a group photo here. So uh, everyone, please feel free to take your mask off, and we can take a group picture together. Okay, please look at the camera. 1, 2, 3, cheese. Okay, 1, 2, 3 again, cheese. Okay, thank you again. Thank you, everyone. So before our speakers begin, we would like to briefly introduce the agenda of today's event. So we have invited three speakers today, and each speaker will have 20 to 25 minutes to share their experiences, and we will have a Q&A session after the three speakers finish. And we would like to invite all of our audience from on the site to raise your questions. Then, if we still have time, we'll also open the floor to our online audience as well. So, as Mr. Huang mentioned, this is the last day of our Sustainable New Year's Table. We would like to invite everyone to also see the exhibition as well. And today's seminar and workshop here, we would like to talk about how we can preserve local voices in music production. So Anu is really the performer who showed up in our opening ceremony, and we would like to thank Anu again for also showing up in our end ceremony or closing ceremony today. And in the exhibition, you can also see the music creation of Anu, the Don't Litter the Garbages Around. So this is a music piece created by Anu. So this is a song that presents how the Aboriginal languages can also be used to compose music and songs as well. And then we can also talk about how these popular music can also integrate with our Aboriginal languages. So first of all, let's invite Anu, please. Okay, so I think this is good afternoon and good evening to everyone here. So I would like to say hi to you in my tribal language. This is Ainu from the eastern coast of Hualien. I'm from the Fongbin Township in Hualien, and I'm from the Makote tribe in Hualien. So this is my tribal name here. So when I was born, Anu Kalitin Sadipongan is not really my name here. I was called Lin Guochang because in the past, uh, the nationalist government asked Aboriginal tribes to convert their names to Chinese. It started from actually the Japanese colonial period, and after the nationalist government came, they also asked Aboriginal people to change their name into Chinese as well. So when I was born, my grandparents, my parents, they gave me my tribal name here, Anu Kalitin Sadipongan. So and when I was still in the kindergarten, people call me Ling Guoqing, that's my Chinese name. And it wasn't until I turned 23 that I started to use my tribal name. I went to Taipei after serving in the military, and I noticed that in Taipei, there are actually a lot of Aboriginal people. They demonstrated on the street for the benefit and the rights of the Aboriginal people. And we saw a lot of people from different groups demonstrating on the street. And I noticed that, or I realized that our tribal names, they should appear on my national ID. My tribal name should be on my national ID. Of course, my Chinese name was given by my father as well, but it was given due to the system or due to the policy by the nationalist government. So it was dominated by the Han culture. So our grandparents, when they are going to register their identity or profiles in the government agencies, uh, the government staff will tell them to change their last name in Chinese without a certain rule. For example, if you live in a mountain, then you can have your last name as Lin because it means forest. So after I joined these Aboriginal movements, I started to realize that uh, our tribal names should be used, should appear on our national IDs. So I turned back to use my tribal name. And I think at that time, I've been thinking about one thing here. So I spent years working in Taipei and I wasn't really familiar with my tribal culture. And even though I grew up in the tribes, I speak my tribal language. I sing the songs in my tribal language. But at the time, I didn't know what's the significance or meaning behind all of these cultural elements. We were just like every young man, we want to learn information, cultures from abroad. And at the age of 28, I told my boss that I want to quit. I want to go back to my hometown. After I went back to my hometown in Hualien, and you see this in the eastern coast, we face the seacoast, and also the mountain. We're surrounded by nature. And it wasn't until then that I started to learn how to live in the nature and in harmony with the nature. So I started to learn how to do that with my colleagues, with my classmates, with friends that I grew up with. So you see, this is what we did in the pictures. We started to learn how some of the cultural elements from my tribe. I learned how to catch fish, and I participated in many of the ceremonies, ritual ceremonies in the tribe. I went up to the mountains, went down to the sea, because in the Aboriginal cultures, the natural environment, the sea, the mountain, they are essential parts of our culture. Our body, I can say, back when we are not in a really wealthy society or era, we lived in harmony with the nature. So it was this tradition is embodied within our body. And I think I need to learn how to swim or dive in the ocean and hunt in the forest or in the mountain. So really, our lifestyle, the way we live, has a close connection with the nature. And within this context, we have to know that we have contacted or we have a lot in common with the nature. And what we're also seeing here is that after I went back to my tribe, I wasn't a major of music, so I didn't start learning how to play guitar and compose music pieces after I was 30. So do you know who my teacher is? So it's in the picture here, myself. So I did a major music in back in university. So in order to know how to compose a music work or a music piece, I bought a guitar and I utilize my experiences in the tribe. For example, I caught fishes, I carved, I carpented the wood, I made some wooden sculptures. They are the nutritions that nurtured me, and also some of the ritual ceremonies here. Many of you may know that for the Ami people, they have this harvest ceremony, and in our in the Amis, we have this Lisin ceremony here. So the harvest ceremony is actually the name given was given by the Japanese government. They called it, I think it's Fongnen-je in Japanese, because in Ryukyu Island, they also have this Fongnen-je or harvest ceremony. And in northern part, the Amish people call it Manalinkin. And in southern part of eastern coast, we have another name for the ceremony. So Elisin ceremony here, it means that we are in a ceremony. We call it Elishin. And then ever since I was a kid, I started to get in touch or start to engage in these ceremonies. But at the age of 20s, I still didn't know how I can utilize these experiences. I just didn't realize how important or significant they are. Because when I was 16, I was just like every young people there. We wanted to move to the city. We want to learn a lot of these foreign elements. We want to really earn our social or economic status. And these cultural elements are left behind by me. It was just part of my memory, but nothing other than that.
Why did I say that I learned classical music? When I say classical music, many people would think of the Western music, like strings music and many other instruments. But when I came back to my community, I found that I have learned the classical music since my childhood. So what is the classical music? It is actually the folk music from my indigenous community. These songs and ballads and folk music have been passed on a few thousand years. So I started to find that this is the classical music that I have learned. Amis people don't have a lot of instruments. We love to sing and accompany others. So we have different tracks to sing songs. This is me in Ilising ritual ceremony. So you can see I took something that is a cooking alcohol. Do you think that you can drink it? No, no one will drink that. In the past, when Amis people held rituals or ceremonies, many people from the society will have the stereotypes that indigenous people really love to drink alcohol. But I am someone growing up in the community. So when I see this kind of cooking rice wine, I don't think of that stereotype. In the past, there was no convenience stores, no 7-Eleven. We only have the only have the public bureau for selling tobacco and liquor, and we planted the rice ourselves. We needed a very huge rice field in order to make the wine for cooking. In indigenous people's opinion, the cooking rice wine is really precious and valuable. So if they go to friend's place, they will bring this rice wine because this is our life. Having this alcohol is showing a respect for our guests. So when friends come to our home, we will take out the wine to treat them. After the nationalist government came to Taiwan, they established the Taiwan Tobacco and Liquor Corporation. We had to plant a huge field of rice, but out of the rice field and alcohol making license were retrieved by the government, then how could we survive? So this was how we uh, go so far right now. So they are delicious, right? We often go down to the sea and harvest some seafood. We have to supply the whole community. So it is really natural for us to catch these fish or crabs or shell animals. It is not how our habit to buy seafood. We have to really go down to the sea and capture those fish and other marine products by ourselves. And then we will make our food by ourselves. So we don't really want to just use the government funding and hold our invaluable rituals. Actually, the allowances from the government is an extra income. So we will dive down to the sea by ourselves in order to have the connections with the nature. When I'm in a sing ritual, there are a lot of songs, and most of the songs have thousands of years of history. General people wouldn't know what we are singing, and even the indigenous people don't know its meanings. In fact, in our rituals and ceremonies, perhaps we don't really understand the lyrics, but it is a kind of medium. You can use the lyrics to have a conversation with a third space because the songs are a medium, and our generation don't know about the meaning, but perhaps the people in the past know what they mean. So I will say that these kind of songs and lyrics are a medium, and it's a way for people to release their emotions. And it is a kind of nostalgic expression. It's our belief, it's our politics, and it's our dream. How do I compose songs? Normally, don't compose songs in my community because I want to live my life in a community. I want to catch fish. I want to meet new people, learn new things in my indigenous community. So I collect all kinds of information from my eyes and ear, but I don't compose. I don't know about the musical notes, and I can't even read the notes. So through my life in the community, I will internalize all of the experiences. Next, let's watch a clip of Elysing. Maybe some of you have haven't watched the video. In my community, it is dominated by men. Of us will drink alcohol in the ritual so that we can be more relaxed, so we can sing out louder. So actually, at this moment, they are so tired. We start from midnight, 12 a.m., until 7 a.m. This song was sung in the end, almost ending. Because of time, I will just show this short clip. So the videos are all on the YouTube, so you can search for it. So you can see there were all men in that short clip, but here you can see women in the photo. In our belief, women are a very sacred individuals. We think that there are spirits, there are gods in female bodies. So their bodies are more closer to our ancestral spirits. So when we pray for prosperity to the gods, there are all women. Women have to sing for that. And men are responsible for pouring wine. So women are the one who have to celebrate. And what is Elysing? It is a ritual that can relax ourselves and make ourselves peaceful in mind. It is also training us to live with the nature and protect the nature. In addition, in the ritual, there are some ceremonies for us uh, to try to be bold so that we can protect the community. And some age organizations will protect the communities. They will patrol the mountain areas. So through these kind of rituals, we will become someone that can coexist with the nature. Then we also have the sea rituals. This is also a male dominant event and women cannot participate. Why do we have to hold sea rituals? Because every year we will use sea resources. So in the ceremony, we will tell the sea god, river god, or ancestral spirits that we hope that when we catch fish, please please make sure that we will be safe on the sea, especially during the COVID-19 situation. This is also a training to men to work with the nature. So these are the fish, crabs, and lobsters that we've caught. We didn't we don't eat like that every day. It is only when rituals take place. So in daily lives, we just live by ourselves. We really go down to the sea in person and catch these fish. So we will just eat on the ground and have meal and have fun together. The next day, we will start our rituals. You can see there's a team leader in the top picture in red. So he is the chief of our community. Actually, I don't like the word chief because it is quite colonized. Now we call him team leader, a leader, because if we say chief, it is like fake or it is just like a bad guy, the leader of the gang or so on. So I don't like the word chief, but actually many indigenous people are really used to this term. Since the Japanese ruling period, they all call them chief. But for me, I would prefer the word leader. So for the sea rituals, they can teach us a lot of things. They try to teach us how to live with the ocean, and we want to know more about the sea. And it is also important for our training and education. We want to let more people know the importance of the rituals.
Okay, so this is my music work. So this is really my first album, and it was released in 2013. That was the first time that I made a album. And on the other hand side, you see my new album here. It was released in 2019. So the other one here is the music album for a movie, and was also nominated for the Golden Bell Awards as well. So this is really the history of how I came to create my music pieces. So how do I create my music pieces? So I would say a good music piece must be able to touch not only myself but also others. So during this era when we focus on the commercial benefits of the music pieces, but I would say I'm not serving the commercial society. I'm serving people who like the music, who like my culture, who like my understanding of the culture. You can be a foreign from other countries. You can also be the Han people. There's just no boundaries and groups in music. As long as you like my music, then this music is for you. I would say music is it's beyond boundaries, beyond groups. So it's an acoustic experience. So let's forget about the tribes, the languages. It's just music. It's just pure music. So let's take a look or listen to one of my creation here. Okay, so sorry because I only have 20 minutes and I really have a lot of things to share with you. So this is my music creation. I created this music or this song for a movie. So the name of the song is Listening.
好，先听这样好不好？
Okay, I think we'll pause here. You can also look it up on YouTube. It's called Listening or Tangjilin. I created this song in 2019. It's about nature. So we usually understand the world by seeing the world, but can we also understand the world by listening to the nature? Yes, I think there's a possibility to do so. So usually when I was a kid, I remember clearly that we would be able to tell who came back just by listening to their car's sound. So it was really an experience for me. And for example, in October, usually we have the northeastern monsoon, and they bring marlin and also other kinds of fish and also vegetables. This is how I understand my world. So I think we still have time for a Q&A, right? Okay, due to time restrictions, so we'll just open to one question and leave other questions for the Q&A session after the three speaker finishes. So any questions here? So if you're still thinking or composing your question, okay, we see one question. Okay, so hello, Anu. So I was want to ask, when is the sea rites or sea harvest taking place? It's around May every year. So it's the hottest time around the year, and Amis people like to have the rites or rituals in the hottest time of the year. Okay, thank you. Okay, please give an applause to Anu again. And we will still have chance for Q&As later. And then right now we will also invite our second speaker here, Liu Jung-chang. So sorry, our second speaker will be Yoku. So let me introduce Yoku Walis. Yoku Walis was from the Sediq tribe in Nantou. So actually, the Sediq people speak three different kinds of languages. So there are three different languages that were spoken by the Sediq people. It's the same for Amis and also Taiwan and also other Aboriginal groups as well. Even within the same group, people speak different languages or dialects as well. So it's really we have these differences even within the same group. And Yoku Walis speak the Sediq Churuku language. She was from the Sediq Churuku language, and we had some chances to really work together with some of the teachers who promotes the local languages of Sediq people. For example, for Han people or people from the Han culture, during the Chinese New Year or the traditional New Year, people will talk about how we can really uh, prepare ourselves against the New Year's Eve dinner because our parents and also cousins may ask us, "Oh, when are you going to get married? When are you going to get a new job?" And then I remember that I participated in one of the Sediq New Year festival or New Year banquet as well, and people there wanted to speak their local or tribal languages, and then their parents, their seniors would tell them that, okay, there's a mistake in your grammar and your wording. And I was really touched about this respect and also focus on recovering speaking tribal languages. Okay, so hello everyone, both our audience from offline and online. So this is Yoku Walis. I would like to talk about how I produce music pieces with my tribal language. And also, I would like to talk about how we develop self identification here. I will share with you how I learned my mother tongue here. So, I'd like to introduce to you with my tribal language. Okay, thank you. So I just spoke within my own local language, my mother tongue. So why do I want to introduce myself with my mother tongue? The reason is that being a young generation of the Sediq people, I don't really have a lot of opportunities to speak my tribal language. So whenever I can or whenever I have the opportunity to speak my tribal language, I would love to do so. And here we have this Romanian link system to really tell you how you can pronounce my tribal language. So, as what the organizer just mentioned, I learned a lot from the people or teachers promoting tribal languages as well. So, what does my tribal language mean to me? Well, I can say that when I first started learning my tribal language, it's more like a process to know more about myself and to develop self identification. So, when I first started learning my tribal language, my purpose was to communicate with my grandmother because there is a communication gap between me and my grandmother. My grandmother only speaks the Sediq Turuku language, so she doesn't really speak Chinese fluently. So she wasn't really willing to speak or talk to me. That's why I want to learn my tribal language. So I asked myself, how could I learn my tribal language so that I would be able to continue speaking it and not abandon it or giving it up halfway. So I started to incorporate it with my habits or interests. For example, music creation or music production. When I used my tribal language to create music pieces, I was blessed because I fell in love with my tribal language. That's something I hadn't expected when I first started learning the language. At first, I thought it was a difficult process. I have to memorize a lot of words and also a lot of grammar rules. But actually, it turned out that as you get involved within the culture, the language came to you naturally. You learn it from the histories of your ancestors, from the stories of your parents and senior members. So, and at the same time, when we sing these songs in our tribal language, I feel at ease. It's like uh, it's like going back to an environment where I'm worry free. And whenever I sing songs in Chinese, they don't really mean that much to me compared to songs in tribal languages. So when I mentioned, as I what just mentioned, there are some core elements in my tribal language, and it's something that is meaningful throughout my lifetime. If I'm wi- I know that if I'm willing to speak tribal language, then it's really a key that connects me with my tribe and also my family. Our lives become connected. So this is really the blessings that I have received from learning the tribal language. So when did I start learning the tribal language and create music pieces with my tribal language? It started around 7 years ago. And I think at that time, I made my first song with my tribal language. I know I knew that I want to learn my tribal language, but I wasn't that fluent at that time, 7 years ago. So in my first song, I used two words from my tribal language throughout the song. And then in 2018, the we saw that we have a competition here about creating songs with our tribal languages. And then it inspired me to create more musical pieces with our tribal languages. It was a contest held by the Council of Indigenous Peoples. And I started creating music a lot more years, a lot longer earlier before than that. So uh, I saw this contest on the internet and decided that okay, I would try to participate in the contest as well. And then I made a plan to create my first album in tribal language. So it means that 80% of my songs have to be created with my local language. But at the time, I wasn't still fluent enough with the language. And also, I think I didn't know that much about my culture as well. So I started to learn my tribal language back in Nantou again. We have a uh, we have an association of the Sediq language back in Nantou, and in the Sediq group we have three languages here, and in this association we have the people who can speak these three languages. And I learned from the teachers in the association and exchange our experiences with them. So my tribal language teacher actually helped me translate the songs, my lyrics into my tribal language.
So why did I go back to Nantou to learn my tribal language? Because now I'm based in Taipei for study and work. So it is really hard to learn tribal language. I have to learn the language on purpose, just like Mr. Anu said. We as young people have to bear the responsibility to be an indigenous person. But I would leave my thought to the end. At that time, I was in a city and there was no teacher in my tribal language. Actually, we have a lot of dialect, so I could not find any teacher in Taipei. And in 2018, the we didn't have many resources because in 2019 the government has formulated the Development of National Languages Act. So since then, uh, we found an increase in the resources. But back in 2018, that's why I wanted to go back to Nantou to learn my tribal language. Indeed, in a city, we didn't have so many chances to meet indigenous people. Even if we meet indigenous people, we may not belong to the same communities. Like some are Amis or Sediq or uh, Ataya and so on. And every ethnic group has their own characteristics. And I know it's difficult to learn tribal language, especially we don't have many resources to learn tribal language in the city for young people. So at that time, I went back to Nantou very frequently to learn from the teachers later. So I started to realize the importance of tribal languages. And I felt very nervous when I couldn't find a teacher or other resources to learn my tribal languages. I went back to Nantou and I started to developed my motivation of learning Sediq. And with that realization, I started to think about how we can create the opportunities by ourselves so that more young people could know more about the language and the culture rather than waiting for the government to help us. So this is my original intention. And I learned from the principal Zhang from the Tribal Language Promotion Association. And we agreed to collaborate and launch the first album. After that, I started to understand the depth and the culture of our language. And since I understand the language, I can interpret the connections and interaction with people around me from my own perspectives. During my learning process, some vocabularies would tell me the background meaning and connotation of the elderly's lives in the past. Furthermore, these vocabularies also tell me how we should be kind to each other and how we should respect each other. In addition, we also consider how we can live our life in a more sustainable way. And we have to keep ourselves humble and live with our earth together. So this is some cultural connotations conveyed by my tribal language when I learned the language from the teachers in the association. So from that time to 2019, I went back to Nantou once every week. I didn't stop my learning journey. So I continued this learning path for 1 to 2 years. And with everyone's support and help, I managed to launch my first album in my tribal language. How can we use music to unite the local society? When I came back to Nantou and collaborated with our language association on top of translation, when I launched my first album, the first thing I did was to participate in the promotion of tribal language. I acted as an editor in Sediq on Wikipedia. Some teachers from the association were responsible for the translation of the articles. And when they translated, we watched how they translated and learned. So the purpose is to promote the culture, and also we would like to tell the next generations that these elderly, these seniors were trying hard to pass on our legacy. What I learned from this process was that we really saw and participated in this process in person, because when we learn languages, we always learn from textbooks, but we could not really cultivate that sense of language in from textbooks. So when the seniors and elderly translated the article, they used the their thinking to translate. For example, we don't have airplanes in our tribal language because they haven't seen an airplane. So they describe it as a flying house. So they wouldn't just translate it as an airplane, but describe it in their way. So this is the sense of language. This is our linguistic ability. And this is how I learned my tribal language with them. I just mentioned that we have 3 different kinds of languages, and sometimes it is hard to really understand every word of their conversation. But if you have the sense of the language or the culture, you will roughly know what they want to convey. So these pictures were were taken when the album was launched. So we cooperated with each other and helped the translated articles to publish on Wikipedia. And one of the teachers from the association also composed songs, and I put his songs in my albums. So I went to the association, to the language center very often, and during the exchange of ideas and our interaction, we can spark more uh, more experiences. I remember that after 1 month of the launch, and I had 2 songs that really gained children's popularity, and some of the tribal language teachers wanted to use my lyrics as teaching materials. And I was very willing to let them use the lyrics to teach the children because that was our purpose of promoting tribal language. And the title of the song was Pig Slaughter Day, because in our ritual we will slaughter pigs as the offerings of our rituals. It is just like the the cake that that will be distributed in Han's culture, but in our culture we use pigs as a celebration. So let's enjoy the song.
我前面讲都是在讲杀猪的过程。
I'm talking about the process of slaughtering pigs in the front part of the lyrics.
Barbie 就是猪的意思。
Bapi is our tribal language. It means pigs.
这是我们的传统乐器口簧琴。
This is our traditional musical instrument.
等一下待会会有一段饶舌听到那边，然后那个就是在讲分猪的那个
Later
过
there
程。
will be a
在
rap
后面
and it talks about how we allocate the pigs.
就先听到这里。这个就是
Okay, so this is roughly the song, and this is my title song of this album, Pig Slaughter Day. Did you hear Lamborghini? That is our subculture. It's our fortune car in our community, and we always call it our Lamborghini. So we will use that kind of fortune car to carry our pigs. And this is also the knowledge that I learned from our tribal elders. After I launched this song, I worked with the association to teach how to compose songs in our tribal language for our young people. I taught them some methods because many young people in the community uh, haven't learned any musical instruments. So I try to teach them how to compose songs without using musical instruments. I try to pass on some knowledge that I learned from the city and from the elderly in the community. And we find that music can really be related to students' preference on campus, because at that time, at their adolescent period, they really like some catchy songs or lyrics, and it creates vibes. So teachers can use the songs and lyrics to teach elementary school students to dance and also arouse their courage to use their tribal language to compose. So when we teach them, we also held a talent show, and one of the students said that he didn't dare to present his works. And I said to him that it really doesn't matter, it's fine. We are always here with you. So in that talent show, I felt really proud of them, because I think many students in our indigenous communities are really talented. They just don't know how to take the first step, and they don't know how to get the resources. And I really found a really great creation from a girl, and I know that very soon she would launch her artwork.
So we released the album in 2019, and at that time, I was really grateful for my tribal friends and also my tribal language teachers. They helped me a lot in completing the album. So I told myself that every year I would like to really hold a public welfare or charity event to pay back or contribute to my tribe. So sometimes we would raise daily necessities and send it to the tribal. I remember one year we sent the shoes to the villages, and sometimes in some years we have this performance. We collaborated with some YouTubers to do some performance in front of the kids in the tribal villages. So we try to convey a message here that there are many ways to learn our tribal language. So this is one of our charity performance in the video I would like to show you.
这是我们透过 YouTube 的方式，
So
然后
this
为
is the
他
way
们
we
在
do
地
it.
去
We
这前面就不用
recorded,
看。
we make the video on YouTube, And then this is a charity performance that we gave.
就是这里，这时候是我想要跟这个勾达国小，他们是我们部落的实验学校国小的，然后我们那时候就刚有园游会。
Elementary school, and this is the fun fair, and we try to incorporate some of our traditional cultural elements. And this is the way we did it. We collaborated with YouTubers. So we try to promote local cultures. And we also have some song singing activities. So these are singers in our tribes. And here what you can see is that we also try to present or reproduce our cultural elements through videos. And here what you can see is that we also collaborated with our singers and then recorded, make it into a video so that people that are not so familiar with our cultures will be able to learn these elements as well. And these pictures were taken when we have this charity event. So these kids taught us how to use these weaving techniques, local weaving techniques. So this is the picture we took with the students in elementary school, and this is a quite huge tribe here. If you visit my own tribe in Wonshan, and there is only, I would say, 2 to 3 students in each grade. And in this Goda Experimental Elementary School, it's quite a large elementary school here. You see a lot of students. And then music to me, it's a field for me to utilize or apply my tribal languages. It is only when I'm creating the music works that I feel that I'm really breathing, I'm living. It is a field for me to express myself freely. And then as I create musical pieces with my tribal language, I remember that one study pointed out that creating music or learning from music is the most efficient way to acquire a local language. So this is a great opportunity for me to share this with you, and I would like to say thank you again to the organizer for sharing this with me as well. So for people who would like to learn tribal languages but who don't have the resources or environments, I would say there are diverse ways, there are a variety of ways to learn tribal languages. So tribal languages, they're not just a language that appears in the textbook. So I think we can have 3 ways of acquiring local languages. First of all, ask yourself why you would like to learn these tribal languages. And after you know why, then you'll be able to really know whether you want to continue this or not. So after these self-quest and also self-inquiry, you will be able to know the purpose why you want to learn tribal languages. And secondly, I would say you can also try to learn the languages from different ways. For example, we have these supports and resources from technology. You can learn the tribal languages not only from textbooks, but also from all of the online resources. So for example, we have these special websites dedicated to the promotion of tribal languages. And for example, people would post these teaching materials on Instagram and also Facebook as well. So for example, you will see some of these fan pages teaching you how to learn English, and it's the same for tribal languages as well. So another way is to really make communications or contact our local organizations. You can even establish a line chat group with your tribal seniors so that you can communicate with local languages or tribal languages via line. And I think, for example, if you can tell them, okay, I'm going to do a performance today. Could you also check if my tribal language is fluent enough? And you can ask for their help, or you can write posts on Facebook in your tribal language. There are all many ways to practice your tribal language. So I would say to me, it's really a unique experience as a singer and songwriter. I learned my tribal language for more than 4 years. I went back to my tribe, and also I learned my tribal languages in National Taiwan Normal universities as well. So I also learned my Sediq Turuku language from the Turuku people as well. The similarity between our languages are 98%. So there are just some slight differences between the Sediq Turuku language we speak and the language the Turuku people speak. So for example, the term for friend in our language actually means couples or lovers in this Turuku people language. So this is some of the minor differences that we would encounter when we try to learn the language from the Turuku people. So I think these languages, they're also about culture. They represents local cultures. For example, in South Africa, you see these South African musics composed in local languages. So these musical pieces, they are a representation of our local cultures, of our historical backgrounds. It tells us who we are and where we come from. So it is with these beautiful values that we get to know more through these musical works. So I love creating musical pieces, and also it is how I develop my self-identification. So we are Aboriginal people, not only because we look like one, but because we understand the cultural elements deep down. And then I hope that in the future, I will be able to create even more musical pieces, and tell more stories in my tribal language. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Yoku. Our next speaker, Chang or Mr. Liu Jung-chang, and he's preparing now. So I think we've just heard the sharing from Yoku and also Anu, one from the coastal tribe and the other one from the mountain tribe. So our third speaker today is from Hsinchu. He speaks with the Sixian dialect, or this from the Hakka group. So from the museum side, I would say, for example, food. For example, in our seminars this morning, we learned that foods are also a representation of our culture. And for these speakers in the afternoon, songs and also languages are ways that represent their local cultures. So we know that Han people are the majority in Taiwan now. But right now, as we've learned from a lot of foreign cultures, some of our traditional elements were lost in the festive process. For example, in the New Year tradition, many of our cultural elements have been missing. And it was in these Hakka and also Aboriginal people that we see these traditional elements are still preserved. So I think today, Mr. Liu Jung-chang will also share with us how these traditional cultural elements are preserved. Hello everyone, you can call me Chang. I will also try to keep my talk brief because I want to save more time for the Q&A session. So actually I can speak Taiwanese as well because I'm a Hakka growing up in Taipei. But I think it was really in the process of our life that we started to ask who we are and where we come from. So I published some of my works or books here. Here you see some of the albums that I released back in 2014 and also 2018. They are mainly songs for children. So I started making the preparation in 2012 and then released my first album in 2014. And back when I was in Taipei, I created many songs for children as well. So I was a freelancer at that time, and I created a lot of songs for children and for children education. So I was born in 1977, and at that time, there were many family factories in Taiwan. It means that every house was a small factory where we make money. So when my mother was doing these businesses or work for companies, we would be playing songs, we were listening to songs, to Taiwanese songs and also other kinds of traditional songs. There were never Western songs, symphonies, or other kinds of Western songs. So these local songs were implanted to me, for example, Taiwanese songs, back when I was a child. And then after that, I was lucky enough to be the leading singer in a band. And we had the chance to give performances in a lot of occasions. For example, this is the national holiday where we gave performance. And also in 2016, we also gave a performance in the Metropolitan Museum or a baseball arena in New York as well. So we had the chance to give the performance due to our Hakka tradition here. You can see the video.
你看，这个老人家在唱古调。
These elderly are singing the ancient tunes. Okay, that's it. We will skip this. Because we want to pursue the traditional native language. When I grew up, I actually grew up in a city. I graduated from the National Taiwan University of Arts. How could I learn Hakka language? It was impossible, especially in my era. In Taipei City at that time, could you have a guess where we could hear the most Hakka language?
那平常还有没有学其他的客家话？好，司令检查验山双联为查挑战，为中府奉兄旅下，请在本站观察。
对，但是现在多，
Yeah, that's right.
好，现在是多得多哦，但其实
Now you can hear Hakka in many places, public places, like the public transportation system, on the HSR, and so on. When I went back to Hsinchu in 2011, in the elementary school of the Hakka village, actually no one speaks Hakka except the elderly. I don't know if all of the communities have the same situation. Actually, no one from Hakka village can speak Hakka. As long as our children go to the mainstream education system, it is Mandarin which they learn. Actually, Taipei City, Hsinchu, or other villages have the same situation. So maybe some people will establish a tribal language center, then they will just speak their native language. So why did I mention the two albums at the very beginning? Because I realized that we are still a music person. We are not the language teacher. So for us, it is a better way to use our existing materials to teach the children and have some fun. So in 2016, many people start to use a lot of different musical instruments to teach their native languages. And at that time, we don't know anything about like placemaking or like intervention or regional revitalization. There was no such concept. And I had a chance to teach students how to play ukulele. So at that time in this Dadu elementary school, their school song is in Hakka, and I taught them how to play the instrument and also sing some Hakka songs, and I found it quite effective. And then also compose songs by ukulele to express our traditional concepts and knowledge. So I made one song, two songs, and then I launched an album. And we also held a singing competition in an elementary school. The students felt so amazed and happy because they could become famous. Did you know what they are doing? they held a long bamboo stick. It is a very important process. We rent a classroom in the elementary school and we just recorded our music there. In July summer, actually there will be some when I record our songs. So we had formed a small team to catch the insects from the trees. So when we catched or when we disturb the insects, when we disturb the cicada, it will stop from around 10 minutes. And this is the period that we can record our songs. When we did this event, many teachers in native languages worked with us. And we started to promote these songs in many schools. I have to say, whether it's the Ministry of Culture or the Hakka committee, they have some resources for us to go to the schools. Normally, when we go on campus as artistic and cultural organization, people just have fun and then there's no continuous promotion. So I will ask the school to sing some songs for us and we can play the accompanying music for them. And some schools would try to do that by themselves, like teachers would ask their choir or orchestra or some other musical clubs to do the music in tribal languages. In fact, if people in the modern society cannot really fit in their original indigenous community or Hakka community, actually when many students are learning their native language, you can just see it as a foreign language because it is really less commonly seen in our daily life. When we do this activity, we have to communicate with the teachers there because our work is not to teach languages. What we do is to make this thing fun. So from one song to one album to campus tour and many other interesting teaching materials. In fact, there are many people around the corners of Taiwan who contribute to the promotion of native languages. So in Hsinchu County, we have formed a promotion association of native languages. I also met many mothers or new immigrants who have put a lot of effort into teaching their children the native languages. I consider recent years have been a critical moment because in the process of modernization, we can still pass on some elements of native languages to our next generations.
变台语。
Here is Taiwanese. So this is a native language group. The mothers brought their kids to learn the native languages together, and we as musicians provide some musical resources and work with the mothers and teachers to bring our thoughts to the children. So this is my sharing today. Thank you very much. So now we are going to have a general discussion. So we would like to invite all of the speakers to the stage. Ladies should sit in the middle. All right. So today we want everyone to be engaged. So if you have any questions, please feel free to raise your questions, or even the speakers can ask questions to each other. Any questions from the audience? Okay, please. Hello, everyone. My name is Guo Yupu. Actually, I identify with Mr. Liu a lot. I am based in Taipei because I was born and raised in Taipei, but my parents are from Tainan. And in my daily life, I don't have to use Taiwanese. So today, when I heard the progress of the promotion of tribal languages, I feel what you've done is so amazing because actually I just have to understand what my relatives say in Taiwanese. That's fine because I don't really need to communicate with them in a fluent way, and it doesn't affect my life in Taipei. But now I will learn English in order to teach our children, or in order to understand more about our pop culture, pop singers. I will try to learn Taiwanese to understand the lyrics. So this is my thoughts because actually my native language is Taiwanese, but I really don't know how to speak it fluently. So I think this begs the questions. Taiwanese, Hakka, and tribal languages are the languages without text. So every may, everyone may know that um, Taiwanese language can be turned into English letters, and we can read the text. And we know that Taiwanese is not that will not appear very soon, but for tribal languages, this is not the case. And I forgot the name of the singer. Actually, there was a song named "Never Give Up," and it is in tribal language, and I actually don't know anything about the song. So maybe there will be some AI techniques to translate the tribal language. What do you think about that?
Well, hello everyone. So I I think Atang and also Yoku have a quite difference from me because they grew up basically not in a tribe, but I grew up in a tribe. My parents didn't speak tribal languages, so we speak Taiwanese, Kavalan language, and also the Amis language. So these three languages are languages that I grew up with, and to me, to create musical pieces with my tribal languages is just a natural process. I don't have to spend extra effort in learning the tribal languages. It's different from Achan and also Yoku, that they need to learn their tribal language first before they can create musical pieces with them. So I think we really need to have an environment to learn or speak tribal languages, or other. If we don't have that environment, what you can learn is really quite limited. The reason I'm able to speak my tribal language is because my friends, classmates, and also family members, they all speak our tribal language. It's an environment that I grew up with. So I acquired the tribal language easily and naturally. So AI and also computer technologies, to me, I'm not really familiar with these technologies, but are they able to really replace the environment that help us learn? I would say the input you can have is quite limited. So just like what Achan mentioned, you can have an immersive environment to learn tribal languages or to learn the tribal languages with your tribal members, because there are just no teaching materials for these tribal languages. What you need to do is to have that environment, talk to the teachers for all day long, for all year long. For example, we have a kid here, he's a university student. He learned he learned the tribal language by his own. So I think he didn't really go to college because he said he didn't want to study in college, but he speaks perfect tribal languages. He did a lot of research studies, and he is able to write theses and research papers on his own. So I would say in a really an authentic environment, we're more able to learn the language on a more holistic way. So, for example, our children here learning the tribal languages, they can also speak English as well. We have a kid who was sent to English-speaking countries for 2 years for traveling, and then 2 years later, he's able to speak English fluently. And then we also have other kids who studied in high school, and he asked me to be his teacher. He wanted me to invite a senior to do some field study. So this senior is already more than 90 years old. So he witnessed all the history from the Japanese colonial period to the national government period now. So he witnessed a lot of changes, a lot of historical events from the perspective of an Aboriginal person. So I think this kid or this student has a really different ways of thinking about the things. Achang, your turn. Okay, so we're more senior, we're older, so I think we get to speak first. Okay. So our audience asks about AI as a way to learn language. And I would say technology is a convenient tool for us. So when I first tried to learn the tribal languages, I have to describe my purposes first. So I was reluctant to see my grandmother talking to me in and her poor Chinese. So that's why I decided to learn the tribal language so that I can talk with my grandmother. And I think these technology, they are really good tools. They're convenient tools for us. And in 2011, I went back to Hsinchu, and right now I speak more Hakka language than Chinese. So, and also I know that my Taiwanese are really getting less and less fluent now. This has a lot to do with the environment that I live in. So the environment I live in now gives me an opportunity to speak more of my mother tongue. So let's say you're uh, people outside Hsinchu, and if you're going to a Hakka village in Hsinchu, if you speak to them in Hakka language, asking them how you can rent a house, if you speak to them in Chinese, then they won't talk to you at all. But if you talk to them in Hakka language, they're more willing to tell you where you can really rent the houses. It's something that I noticed when I went back to Hsinchu. So language is a key. It opens up the trust that the seniors have for you. It tells them that you're part of them. And then, different from Anu, when I went back to my village, I learned a lot of the languages, the Hakka language. For example, how we plant the seed, how we do agricultural activities, and how do we describe them in my Hakka language. I think these life experiences are something that can't be replaced by artificial intelligence. So even if AI can tell you the term, how to speak the terms, the nouns in Hakka language, but they can't tell you how you're going to make mochi in the Hakka village. They can't tell you how the smells of these agricultural products are. So AI can only tell you the sound, how you can pronounce the terms, but the life experiences are not something AI can give you. Okay, thank you. So in response to the question, so actually I have a question for you, our audience here. So you said you want to do translation of tribal languages, but what's the purpose of it? Do you like to translate some of the songs that you hear, or do you want to learn the language from AI? Well, personally, I would say languages are for use, for utilization. We have to use the language. For example, we heard you make self-introduction with Sediq Turuku language. For example, Facebook have the new technologies, and the researcher was able speak Taiwanese and communicate with the CEO of Facebook directly. So if we can have the AI technology to translate the tribal language, then we don't have to care too much about the languages that we want to choose to use. For example, if you're in a convenience store in like Taipei, and then you can choose to speak your tribal language to the clerk in the convenience store, and the AI would translate directly to maybe Chinese. So we don't need to care about the field of our language. We can use it in every place. Well, I can respond to your question based on the experiences that from my past performances. So I had a chance to give a performance in Yuanshan in Taipei, and that was an immersive environment, an awarding ceremony. And I think what we saw there is that the speaker was speaking in his tribal language, And then we have simultaneous interpreters translating the tribal language to Chinese or other languages. And then for AI, it's something that I'm not familiar with. So I might not be able to answer this part of the question. But with the advancement of technologies, I would say perhaps this technology is something worth exploring because new technology will be more chances or opportunities for us. And thank you for your question. Okay, let me summarize here. So this year, we've been trying to hold this festival because we have a new definition for museums this year. And the new definition says that museums should be promoting diversity and also museums should be inclusive. So we know that international seminars are mainly held in English, and also ICOM, the ICOM, it's mainly conducted in Spanish and also French. So if you don't speak French, Spanish, or English, then you will be need to use you need to learn these three languages. And people are now also talking about maybe including some of the Asian languages as part of the official languages of ICOM as well. Okay, so I think I can respond to this as well. So recently, I've been thinking about holding a concert with pure tribal languages. The reason is that ever since I was a child, I have been having this imagination. So in my tribal language, we were able to speak them every day, but after that we lost the chance to do so. So I was always thinking, why don't the Han people learn how to speak our tribal languages? Why do we have to do the Han? Why do we have to learn Chinese or Mandarin? Because we have to, if we create our work pieces, musical pieces in our tribal languages, we have to translate them into Chinese so that we can make people understand this. But back in from the colonial periods, Aboriginal peoples have already always been under suppression. We were forced to learn the language, the official language of the government, and we're forced to learn Japanese, to learn Chinese. So I think whenever we try to learn a culture, we need to stay low profile, we need to stay humble. So, of course, I could speak some of the Taiwanese because uh, it's commonly spoken in Taiwan. And my father was from the Kavalam tribe in Ilan. So, 400 years ago, the Kavalam people lived together with some people from Zhengzhou and Quanzhou from China as well. So, they spoke Taiwanese as well, or the Southern Ming dialect as well. So people have been saying that the minority groups have to translate their languages, but why? Why can't you learn our languages? So sometimes I've been thinking about this question. Okay, so let me also share my experience when I what I saw in Malaysia.
For Malaysia, 50% of the population are Malaysian people, and Malay is one of the official languages. So let's talk about the Western Malaysia because it's different in West and East. So Chinese people have accounted for 15%, then followed by Indian people and other groups. So basically, Malaysian people will speak Malay and English. Chinese people will use their native language. like Chinese, and then English and Malay, because the later two languages are the official languages. For Chinese people will speak their native language and English and Malay and Chinese. So they can speak four languages. And for Indian people, they live beside a Hakka village. So when I bought things from an Indian stand, the staff even spoke Hakka to me, and I was so surprised. So for Indian people, they not only understand the languages I just mentioned, they also have to learn their own languages in India. So for the ethnic groups with less population, in order to survive, I have to communicate. In order to communicate, I have to learn others' languages so that we can survive. This is what I have observed in Malaysia. But for Taiwan's case, what I see from Hakka people is that they will speak Chinese in a Hakka occasion. I feel confused and curious. Just like this morning, I went to a Hakka concert and we just spoke Hakka all the time. What we will face is that most of the people couldn't understand what we are talking, but we think that they really have to learn our languages. It's just like we don't understand foreign languages and we still love to travel abroad. So it really depends on how you view languages from what kind of perspectives. So I just heard the sharing from the two speakers, and they already gave a complete answer to the questions. I also learned a lot. From me, if I hear a language that I never know about, and I will feel so refreshing. And if I hear this language, I will feel interested in learning this language. So in the future, if we want to promote our tribal language or native language, we can use a variety of approaches, not only from music, but also from movies. So we will watch some movies which are really interesting and thought-provoking, and we really don't understand any of it, but we will feel impressed. For example, in Korean movies, we don't know Korean, but oppa always impresses the audience. Or if we listen to some song in Vietnamese, we don't understand any of it, but we feel that it is quite interesting and we would like to learn more about it. This is how we need to work on. We have to think about how we can integrate our native language or tribal language into these cultures. Hello, everyone. I would like to ask questions to Anu and Yoku. You just shared some of your music, and I am curious because it is quite different from our stereotypes and it is refreshing. I don't mean that your music is not indigenous language. I believe that you have put into some of your thoughts into the songs, and you also use some new mediums to tell your stories. So I would like to ask you how you explore your feelings and thoughts when you compose music. In particular, you all have experiences in living in a city. And how do you find a balance between living in a city and in your tribe? And when you create music, if you use a relatively novel approach to compose songs, will your community members feel that this is not traditional and they will argue about it? Does this happen? I think you don't listen to many indigenous songs, so you will have the stereotypes. I am from indigenous people. I am Amis. I will also watch MLB, watch the Taiwanese basketball games. I actually learn the same things as you do. Please don't think indigenous people in a certain way. We will still speak English. You can see the election candidates in Hualien can really speak good English, and he is also an indigenous person. So you will have a certain imagination for indigenous people. Please don't set the boundaries for our indigenous people, because we live in a modern society and we all share the same things with you. We all have the ability to live in this moment in the city. We have many talented people like basketball players who obtain golden medal from Olympic Games. So please don't think of indigenous people as a certain type. We are just like you. Of course, we can still enjoy pop music like Michael Jackson or Abba's music is also amazing. Everyone likes it. So please don't impose our traditions on us. I won't do that because I wouldn't think that I'm going to pass on the legacy. This is a heavy burden. I just want to be myself, and I just want to express my thoughts, my feelings, and I just want to get along with the seniors and juniors in my community well. That's it. It's simple. So when you meet indigenous people or when you are learning about their culture, you have to listen to their music more, and you have to understand the structure of the society and the history. So you will know why we are here and what we are talking about. To answer this question, let me start from the ancient melody. When the elderly sings the ancient tunes, actually they just go freestyle. We have our musical notes and we have our special techniques of singing. So in Sediq society, it is some of the special techniques in singing. But culture will change based on the policy changes or the people you meet. For example, I am from Sediq Turgu, and we have other language group, and when they go to Hualien, they develop their own culture. I just mentioned ancient melody. So 50 years ago, the elderly created these kind of songs. So now it's a kind of tradition. So what the music we create now will become another tradition in the future. So we just learn to accept and understand each other, and this is the beauty of culture. Now we have rainbow culture. We have Sediq and True Crew and Ataya people. So we have a rainbow session, which means diversity. Recently, like yesterday, there is a Taiwan Pride, and it has been 20 years since the first Taiwan Pride. And the purpose of the event is also to promote diversity. When I work in a city, I also meet a lot of people who embrace diversity. I also meet some Chinese who really love K-pop, and they also love their traditional music. So how can I integrate the styles I love into my tradition? And after 50 years, when you look back at the music, it can be another kind of tradition. I think I would like to highlight one point. When we learn a language, one of the reasons is that you really love the culture and you really love the people. Because my father is an immigrant from China, but because he's in love with my mother, so he worked really hard to learn Taiwanese. So now, for me, I can understand Taiwanese, and but when we communicate, we always speak Chinese, speak Mandarin. But when I communicate with my grandmother, I still have to speak Taiwanese with her. And I was born in Taichung and Taipei. And my friends from Taipei will remind me that sometimes we will mix Taiwanese and Mandarin. It's just like what Ah Chang said. Maybe it's a Hakka event, but people still use Mandarin at this event. So how can we deal with the situation? Do you mean they speak Mandarin in Hakka way? Yeah. Actually, it's in the scope of sociology, I think. For Hakka people, we are easygoing because we will just communicate with others in others' language. But in the long run, it is not helpful for the culture and history. So people will see a lot of cultural revitalization events and activities. Like you will see a slogan of "I speak Hakka" in Hakka language printed on a T-shirt. So let's start. Let's go back to the story that the host just mentioned. If a man would like to pursue the girl, then he would be willing to learn that language. So it is driven by hormone, and I think this is the fastest way. But still, after all, it will come down to our interest, and learning a tribal language or native language is really a long process, whether it's Hakka or Taiwanese. So you can see the language diversity happening also in Xinjiang, and we have to find our way and your motivation to learn.
Okay, so do we still have any questions here? Okay, so I have one thing I would like to share with you. So, Zheng Yinong and also Wei Rushen, I think for Zheng Yinong, he had some of these Chinese songs back when he was in college, but right now he's also composing songs in Taiwanese. And we see a lot of singers. For example, Zheng Yinong is now working together with Bao to really try to compose songs with different languages at the same time. So, for example, some of them use four languages in the same song as well. So, I think this is the way the music can also integrate or interact with local languages. So, these singers or songwriters, they have their purposes to try to incorporate different languages, for example, French, Hakka, Chinese, Taiwanese, or English. But it's really it's not a mainstream way to do it, though. Sorry, but we have one last question here from one of our organization team here. So here I just have one question. So as we talk about cultural diversity, linguistic diversity, and I think we are seeing a lot of contributions and also results from these efforts. And I was wondering if you can share with us for the diversity of languages and also cultures. Do you have any visions for this? So your question is for the speakers to share with us their plans, right? Their future plans. Okay, so my plan is to hold a concert conducted only in tribal languages. The reason is that I want to really reproduce the feeling, the experience that I had when I was abroad. So it means that even if you couldn't understand our languages, but of course we will try to give you ways to understand the languages, for example, subtitles or lyrics, but we want to reproduce the experience that I had from other countries. So it's a pure Amis environment. There is no Chinese words or characters here. And then we want to know how you would interpret this kind of event. Because I hope that in Taiwan, people can start learning Aboriginal languages as well. Because languages are for communication. And not only us, but also you should start learning Aboriginal languages as well. We've been knowing the Han people for hundreds of years, and I really hope that Han people can also learn our Aboriginal languages or our lifestyles or our traditional cuisine and our cultural elements so that we know each other better. We love Hakka songs, Taiwanese songs, and Chinese songs. But maybe people in Taiwan know less about Aboriginal languages. So I really hope that if you have the chance, you can also learn the language or enjoy an environment where it's purely the Amis language. Okay, so for me, it's been 3 years since I released my last album. And my second album, I'm actually preparing for it in my mind. So, to put it simply, I want to produce or make musical pieces that can't be defined, because people often have a stereotype for Aboriginal cultures. So, for example, people may think of the Sediq people as being quiet, but actually are quite active. So, in recent years, we started to hear people from the minorities voicing their opinions. So, I want to express their opinions and tell their stories from my music creations. Okay, my recent plans. I want to write more songs. I want to sing more songs, and also I want to speak more tribal language or more Hakka in my house. It's really about living life as usual, and also I think one of our audience talk about using or incorporating different languages in the same song. It's been getting more and more popular in the past 2 or 3 decades, and I believe if you're willing to Google it, you will be able to find a lot of examples. Okay, so we would like to thank all of our 3 speakers today and all of the participations from our audience. Thank you again. Thank you all. So our speakers, please remain on the stage, and also we would like to invite our audience, if you have raised your questions, to take a group picture together. So this is the